You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the option block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster Joe Vanazzi from OptionPit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the option block.
All right, everybody. That rockin' tune means it's time once again for a little program we like to call around these parts being, of course, scenic and sunny downtown Chicago, pushing a nice 70 degrees these days, so good time to be in the Windy City. The tour boats are back, even the race boats are kind of back out on the river. It's a good time. Summer is indeed in full swing, and we're in full swing here on the old option block. My name is indeed Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, and if you want to know, hey, where can I find all those other great shows you do on the network, or maybe coming to us for the first time, or any of that other stuff? Of course, the easiest place to find everything that we do, everything that we touch, all of our articles, our analysis, breaking news on the options market, and indeed all of the many shows that we do, theoptionsinsider.com. It is our central portal, if you will, on the old interwebs from whence all of our content flows. Of course, you can always find us iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and via the App Store, iOS, Android, and the ever-present Fire OS. I'll have to go check the numbers one of these days. I always mock the Fire OS. I have to go see how many people are actually using the Fire OS version of our app. Probably more than I think. I probably shouldn't mock them, but it's fun to do nonetheless. And of course, you can always join us live Mondays and Thursdays, 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern via Mixlr, M-I-X-L-R, where you too can weigh in, mock the Rock Lobster, have lots of fun on the old program. And however you join us, make sure you hit us up. Those questions, those comments, we do love to hear from you guys at the end of the old day. And speaking of the end of the day, we haven't gotten there yet. We're just kicking things off, but might as well bring on my cohorts, one more time, my co-hosts, to help me do just that. Let's start off in the pickle capital of the world. At least that's what they call it. Good old St. Charles, Illinois, where we are joined by Uncle Mike Tussaw from RCM Wealth Advisors. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program, sir.
Always happy to be here, and Chicago ain't going to be so sunny here in a little bit if you got the same storm that we just got done with. Just so you know, you may want to take cover.
Well, there you go. That's what we get for having a nice provincial hamlet out in the western burbs there. We get a little bit of advance warning. Who needs weather radar when you got Uncle Mike Tussaw out there? But I thought you guys had the weather shield, so you just probably laughed at it as it went by, correct?
Well, yeah, we're like, hey, we're sending this to Chicago. We don't want it.
Yeah, bump this one along down to the Options Insider Studios. We don't want it here in the paradise on earth. That is St. Charles, Illinois. A little bit farther afield, some may call it paradise. Others may call it hell on earth, or somewhere in the middle. Perhaps you might fall. It is indeed the Duchy of Maine, where we are joined by the Rock Lobster himself, Mr. Andrew Giovinazzi from OptionPit.com. Feel free to take umbrage at any of that. A lot of that coming your way these days, Mr. Rock Lobster.
I don't even know where to start with the umbrage. Do you know they call Maine vacation land? You know, they don't call Chicago vacation land. They call it the Windy City. Maine vacation land. More second homes of any state in the union as a percentage. People come here because they want to, and they're stuck in Chicago because they have to.
I think second homes is the key. No one wants to live there, but I'll spend a week or two there when in the leaf peeping season, as they are wont to say up there in the old New England environs. It's time for us, though, to sink our teeth into these market environs. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for The Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to The Trading Block. Like the man said, this is indeed the portion of the program where we break down what's going on. What was going on, I should say, really, in today's market activity. Bit of a quiet one from an end of the day perspective, from a broad market perspective, we should say, with most of the major indices pretty much closing not near, actually about not that far from, actually about 10 handles off in the S&P. So a little bit off their highs of the day. S&P hitting about 23.66 before giving up about 10 handles of that, closing right around 23.56, 57 or so in that range. So most of the major indices ending unched. Didn't stop yield VIX cash from taking a nice little inhale here to kick off the week. That VIX cash up about a handle or so, threatening 14 to close the day, about 13.89. Actually did break 14 intraday. I believe it got as high as 14.07. So that other shoe appears to be dropping, Mr. Rocklaps, and maybe we'll start there with VIX kind of just inhaling aggressively. I'll have to go back and check our prognostications for vol views, but I don't think any of us saw so much vol come in so quickly. Did it come as a surprise to you as well today, sir?
It wasn't 100% surprise, but it was pretty surprising. It looks like this French election thing now, there's so much vol in V stocks because it's coming so close to that date. You get kind of that strange earnings. Not strange, but you get kind of the earnings effect where, like, sort of the at the money straddle stays the same because there's an event coming, but since every day you go closer, that means the implied volatility of the strike gets higher and higher and higher. So you're getting this kind of artificial pump in volatility with the V stocks, and then by proxy for VIX. So maybe, they're looking for a move either way. So there's kind of it's almost like a strange buildup of volatility where the market's going to do something. We just don't know what. But it's kind of a strange, and I don't know if anything is going to happen, but there's very, very, I would say, very odd vol patterns, very strange backwardation or just beginning backwardation for a VIX that's only 14. When it's 28 or 34 or 87, you get some funky curves because of vol future movement and VIX movement. But when VIX is only 14, just nobody can get on board bidding the juice up anymore after all of the disappointing shocks. So we'll see. But right now it looks like it's starting to get a mind of its own.
You said you were not 100% surprised, but somewhat surprised. So would you say you were 13% surprised? What was your surprise level today, sir?
Well, we were as surprised as we were also planning for a move up in VIX. So I have to say, from the way we managed our funds, just about everything, we were holding out the possibility that it could happen. Therefore, we were not surprised by it. And we'll just see what happens, how high it runs. I don't know if it really. I don't know how much it's really going to generate, or how high VIX is really going to go on this. But it's got it's been moving literally up on air. I mean, the S&P 500 was up 0.1% today. It kept trying to rally, kept selling off, and VIX managed to rally a whole dollar, being actually unched or down at some point this morning. So it would appear, and there's quite a bid for the April future. Like, somebody's paying $14.67 for the April ordinary future. And literally 4 days ago, that future was, I'm going to say it was $12.50. So there's quite a bid for it right now. I don't know why they want it. I don't know if it's some sort of a mechanical squeeze that somebody wants to cover these things, but it's causing some rupture, just causing a strange volatility market. And normally, the stranger the volatility market looks for futures, the more the market's going to move. So I would not be surprised if we had probably our biggest move of the year within between now and April expiration. April future ordinary expiration. So that would be April 19th expiration. So you might get your buying opportunity. I don't know what would make the market lift hugely, but there's definitely some worry. There's some worry out there.
I will say your buddy there, your cohort, your counterpart, your partner in crime, Mr. Meatball, still fading vol on the vol views this week, picking a 12 handle out in VIX cash to end the week. So maybe an early week spike. And he keeps trying to undercut me there with my 12.65. Getting a little lower than me. So we shall see. We shall see who is the victor there. I will say, though, look at last year's record. I'm just going to say, just look if you want to see who had the record of wins last year. I'll just leave it out there for the listeners to determine such truths. Speaking of truths, let's turn our attention now to Uncle Mike Tusaw, where there are very few truths in St. Charles. As we all know, they lie about the pickle capital of the world, but there might be some truths when we're talking about the market. So, Uncle Mike, caught your eye in today's activity, sir.
Well, let's go with a couple truths here. Andrew, Mark, and myself, we all put our names on the line to manage each other's money instead of just taking pot shots. I think the VIX will do this. Well, I think the VIX will do this. So that's one truth that needs to be mentioned on this show right now. Messing with my pickle capital, by gosh. But with that being said, the other truths that need to be said about today are along the lines of the fact that with the VIX doing what it did today, I think it's obviously one of two things. Either it's very low, or was very low, and buyers just had to come in because they felt it was just so gosh darn low, or something, or actually it could be one of three things, or there is something that's going to happen pretty soon in terms of something major. Maybe there's going to be riots in the street over the Supreme Court justice coming in. Maybe we're about to go to war because of the Tomahawk missiles that we launched last week. Or maybe something's going to happen with China, with Trump talking with his new buddy from China. So you never know along those lines. The third possibility is that maybe there's the fear of one of those things happening, and it turns out to be nothing. And this would be a phenomenal week where Mark Longo could be right about the VIX at the end of the week if you fade it right now. So there's a lot of possibilities on it, but the reality of it is that on the market itself, the SPY, SPX, whatever market you want to follow, nothing happened. So with that being said, today was what I would refer to as Anticipation Monday, meaning there's an anticipation that something's going to happen, but nothing happened. The other thing that didn't happen today is that if there is a lot of fear going on, where were gold and silver today? Oftentimes when something bad happens, whether it's geopolitical or something major market that happens bad and happens fast, we see an increase a lot of time, not every time, of course, but a lot of times in the precious metals. They were, I think I'm looking at GLD, it's flat on the day. Silver was down 3 pennies on the day. So not a lot happened there. The only thing that really was of note or that really caught my eye today of all the sectors is that of energy. Energy, as XLE, what I follow, is up 53 cents on the day, just a little under 1%. But other than that, a lot of the other market was flat on the day for the most part. Oil had a little bit of a bump, up 84 cents on the day over the 53 handle. And natural gas was relatively flat. So all in all, my summary of this Monday would be anticipation. But what's the anticipation for?
I think you're just anticipating Tesla, sir. I know a lot of people hitting us up saying, "What do you think about this? Talk about it on the show." So, kind of have to oblige. It's one of those conflict diamonds of the financial market. No matter what you say about it, people come on both sides of the argument. Pro Tesla, anti Tesla. A lot of shall we say hyperbole floating around out there in Tesla land. But what isn't hyperbole is this thing pushing. Ever so briefly surpassing GM this morning in total market cap. Both of them hovering right around 51 billion with a B. 51 billion with a B in market cap. That's just that's interesting, crazy, depending on how you look at it and which side of the fence you fall. And just looking at some of the coverage, of course, a ton of tsunami of coverage. One thing Tesla can generate, more so than cars, which is still an open question whether they can make enough cars, they can certainly generate headlines, and they can certainly generate PR. Hell, we're talking about them here. So something they're doing over there is working right. One of my staff sent me this article today. I think it was out of USA Today, so the most general, most mainstream of publications. And they were talking about the market surge and the market cap, and they cited an analyst over there at Piper Jaffray, which, of course, This, more than anything, perhaps, despite the Tesla thing, also just shows how bankrupt the analyst recommendation research model is. If you're out there relying on an analyst to tell you what's going to happen in a stock, for the love of God, please stop. Please don't. Tune into a show like this, arm yourself, and go out and make your own determinations. Find other free education, pay for education, do what you got to do. Arm yourself and go out and make your own determinations. Because listening to these guys, only in the analyst world can you be off by more than 50% and somehow be lauded. Like this analyst in this case from Piper Jaffray. Today, he upgrades his Tesla stock from a price target of $223, which by today's prices is about $90 underwater as of today's prices, to $368. So he added $145 to his price target. Now, in most jobs, if you're that off that horribly, you would be fired and roundly mocked. Instead, he gets a lot of ink in USA Today for his headlines. And again, just going back to how morally bankrupt the entire analyst side of the business is. He goes on to make these glowing comments: more than so than any stock we've covered, Tesla engenders optimism, freedom, defiance, and a host of other emotions that, in our view, other companies cannot replicate. And just a lot of other glowing nonsense here to try to make up for the fact that he was so horribly wrong. And, of course, probably get himself back into the good graces of the company as well. The dirty secret of the analyst business is, of course, you kind of have to have a good relationship with the companies that you cover to really get access. They're very much like reporters in that sense. It's just a different side of the same coin. A lot of times you go to these events, you see media dinners, the next dinner or event after is the analyst dinner, an analyst briefing. They have their own events, and they have to maintain that access. So these kind of glowing hyperbole, it serves multiple purposes and ingratiates them. They get some good ink, they get some good coverage for the thing. Of course, back in the old days, the dark old days, which some may say still is around, they would also get some iBanking business for their firm as a result of these kind of grand hyperbolic statements. A lot of that has gone away, thankfully. Not all, but a lot of that has gone away. So still, but that just goes to show, if this guy's 100, supposedly covers Tesla for a living, off by 150 or so handles, maybe you want to look somewhere else. It's like the weatherman. He can be wrong most of the days of the year and still keep his job. Apparently, analysts are the same. But looking at it from a diehard fundamentalist perspective, which I know you are, Mr. Rock Lobster. Mr. Uncle Mike, you do a little bit more technical analysis as well, so you're kind of out there in the middle ground. But looking at the pure raw numbers, GM sold 10 million cars last year. 10 million with an M. Tesla sold 76,000. And yet they're both valued at $51 billion. And I know forward-looking, past-looking, future cash flows, all those things. I know what's baked into a stock price before you tweet at me, before you email me, all these other things, all you Tesla fanatics. I understand that. But still, even Musk admits it's absurdly overvalued if you looked at their recent sales and things. So it's just mind-numbing, mind-boggling how we break it down. Looking at the options today, the options certainly did like this. The ADV in Tesla has been pretty strong of late, as you might imagine, about 125,000 contracts a day. Doing 75,000 more than that today, doing 201,000 today, about 1.5 to 1 calls over puts. If you look at where the open interest is, slight bias to the puts overall, about 1.3 to 1, but not as perhaps as much as you might think out there. We did ask you guys for your own thoughts on Tesla in our poll, our question of the week. A lot of you guys have been hitting us up with that. We'll get to your own thoughts on that in a second. If you haven't played yet, @options on Twitter is the place to do it. It'll be up all week, but of course, a lot of you guys like to pile in and get your thoughts in early. There's a lot to say, a lot to chew, a lot to bite off here. Let's start. Let's go the more staid route. Let's go the Uncle Mike route first. He's probably more middle of the road before Mr. Rock Lobster. He lays into it with his diehard fundamentalist perspective. What are your thoughts on this? I know you don't hold Tesla in the strategic night, clearly overvalued for that. But still, what are your thoughts here on just so many different things to sink your teeth into here? The valuation, the level of delivery, the analysts and that nonsense. A lot of different things to sound off on here, sir.
Yes, there are. In regard to Tesla, I think that you cannot argue with the hype machine with which they have put forth. Fundamentally, I mean, I'd love to short Tesla right now, but it's just, I'm not going to stand in the way of that. No way. From the momentum with which it has had. In terms of the analysts, I think it's insanity to go from that low of a price level. So up till today, does that mean he was short Tesla? Meaning that he felt it would go down, and then now he's doing a flip-flop and thinking it's going to go up now?
He's been underwater for months. I guess he didn't feel till today he had to adjust his opinion.
Okay, because I was just wondering if maybe he thought it was supposed to go to 220 back when it was at 130 or something like that, and just maybe never changed anything. But
You think he finally broke? He finally broke, yeah.
Yeah, or he finally maybe got around to it. I don't know, but I mean, it amazes me the level of how that can work in the analyst business and how people continue to stay around. But it's one of those things where if you have the good relationship, you'll get coverage. But if someone were to come out today, and this part I don't really blame the companies for, if I were to come out today and write a bad article about IBM or Tesla or Microsoft or whatever, none of those investor relations people would return my phone calls if I was a big time analyst like that guy today. So it's just, it's a broken system in a lot of different, and from many angles, because there's really nothing that they can add that you can't get yourself based on information. Now, for me, I'm an advisor. I advise my clients, and I don't do a ton with individual stocks, but there's some out there that we recommend, that we use. I usually rely on our investor policy committee on the individual stocks. I'm kind of the option geek of the group, and I do a lot of trading on SPY and the metals like everyone hears on the show, but I have the ability to recommend a stock based on the individual's needs. An analyst doesn't have that ability because he's just trying to analyze the stock itself. He can put out a price target, but Tesla may be a phenomenal stock for one person, but his neighbor, it might be an awful stock for, who can't handle the ups and downs. And let's just say that let's say that I had a price target of Tesla of 400. Well, if that's the case, there's still no way on earth I would recommend that stock to all of my clients. If you have an 80-year-old retiree who just needs income and doesn't really want to take any risk at all in the marketplace, Tesla's a horrible stock. Even if it goes from 330 to 400 or whatever, it's still a bad stock because of the fact that that specific client does not want to take on that kind of risk. And the stock can go up all at once, but if it gives the person a heart attack, well, he's going to be dead. So the only one it's good for is whoever inherits these shares of Tesla at the stepped up capital gain rate. So with all that being said, I think that when looking at an analyst, you really need to take it with a grain of salt. All they're doing is regurgitating other information that's already public. And if they're not regurgitating information that's not already public, then they're the first ones to release the news. It's going to be public very quickly. So I just think that, in theory, you can have a good moral analyst, but I think the game itself is broken. It's kind of like the old stockbroker game. Stockbroker calls up a client, says, "Hey, how would you like to buy 100 shares of XYZ stock?" "Sure, that would be great." And then the client gets charged $50 or whatever the stockbroker commission is. The stockbroker is motivated to make a trade. He's not motivated to make the client money, and that's why that system's pretty much done. I don't even know if it even exists anywhere anymore, to tell you the truth. I know there's still Series 7 stockbrokers out there, but they're not in the recommendation business. They exist, I'm sure, but it's a rarity. And I think the analyst is going to kind of go the same way of the stockbroker. And I'll be honest, I'm surprised they haven't gone away yet. So that's my take on it from the former pickle capital of the world.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff got shaken up back in the Dodd-Frank days. You used to have days when analysts were getting paid $20 million a year, and we all know one thing: Wall Street is pretty Darwinian when it comes to pay. So if they're getting paid $20 million, they're making the firm a lot more than that. And in an expense-only thing like an analyst, they should certainly, perhaps not be making that much or generating that much for the firm. So what are they doing for that? Those days, thankfully, mostly behind us. But you're right, there still is a lot of room for improvement in that space. Really quickly, Mr. Rocklaus, before we get onto the option block, I'm sure this had to be lighting up the crazies in the pitch chat today. What were they thinking? What were they talking? What was the chat about all things Tesla out there in options today?
Yeah, it was the first thing we tried to price this morning. What's weird is it came out like the upside calls at one point were trading at a higher vol than the puts, the downside puts. So that tells you everything you want to know.
That's like old Apple days. That's like Apple Zeller days. It is like
old Apple days. And so, there are some trades that we were trying to look at time spreads and stuff to sort of sell those. For this week, and everybody's forgetting it's only a 4-day week. but it's not making anybody stop to bid the vol up. They still are bidding the vol up. So I found it interesting, but for whatever reason, Tesla is why stocks go up. I don't even ask questions as to why anymore. They just go. So, and Tesla's on its way straight up. So, and I don't know when it's going to end, but they're the most valuable car company there. So, see, the thing that you forget though is Tesla only has sold 77,000 cars last year. So they have lots more that they can sell. GM has already sold 9 million cars. They can't sell anymore. They've already sold 9 million. So they've got, they can only really go down in the amount of cars they can sell. And Tesla can only really go up. So you got to look at it from that point of view, I guess. Tesla has 8 point,
They have nearly 10 million more cars they could sell. Right there you go. By that logic, I like it.
8.93 million cars to go. So of course it's worth $50 billion.
I like it. I like it. That's the capitulation of an old hardcore fundamentalist. He finally just waves his hands and says, "You know what? I can neither make heads nor tails of this madness anymore. So I'll just look at it and we'll trade it up and go from there." So the diehard fundamentalist libertarian in you, sir, must just be heartbroken at this madness. But still, volatility skew is active out there. So that's a good thing. Let's get into it. We'll get some more about Tesla in a little bit with your questions in the mail block in a bit. But first, let's get on into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the odd block.
Everybody, it's more than just Tesla going on today. Even though it seems like it's taking up all the oxygen in the room, and it is time for the odd block. We're peering into some of the more head scratching paper we're seeing out there in the old options market. Let's kick things off. This is, I think, a newcomer to the odd block. This is MOMO ticker. This is MOMO Inc. They're an ADR ticker symbol MOMO MOMO. Mr. Rock Lobster knows how I like those appropriate tickers. This one closing today, 37.5, pretty much up about 260 or so. It's not a bad day, about 7.5% here for MOMO. If you're not familiar with MOMO, they are a mobile-based social networking platform. This is actually the holding company for said mobile-based social networking platform. So all things sexy and cool in today's market. It's a name that does about 4,200 contracts a day, doing about 3x that, a little over 13,000 today. About 3-to-1 calls over puts, and that should tell you pretty much what caught our eye out here today. These calls were at the money this morning. Now they're in the money. So I think we might have a friend here, perhaps. Let's see the price he got these on. Maybe smiling or maybe like, oh, I was a little bit late to the party. Let's see if we can dig that up, listeners. It was in the May, expiring on the 26th. So this is the weekly, not the May monthly here. 35 calls going up, starting the day here. 1,724 paper buying for $4.40. That was in one block on the ARCA. He pretty much lifted and went through the offer, actually, and then posted the rest of them. He wanted to get more. He got a total of 3,000, so posted the other about 1,300 or so. Kind of sitting there, and they finally got filled later on. It was a good fill at the time. They jumped to about, what are these? These things went out about 450 at 540. So he didn't quite scoop them at the beginning of the day, what these would have been just the scoop du jour. And he had to kind of got hung on the second chunk of it for a little bit. So, he's not going to get an awesome fill on those unless the stock really moves his way. But that said, not too bad overall. Not certainly they're not worth $2 at the end of the day. So I'm sure he's happy about that. Like I said, this is a name looking back on the year that's been here in good old MOMO. This thing has kind of been all over the board, trading as low as just about $9, almost breaking through the 9 handle back in July of last year before hitting its high here today, about 37.5 or so. Actually getting as high as 38.12 today, so pretty much rallying 4x since last July. So interesting stuff. Our friend here liking himself some relatively deep in the money calls here now. Mr. Rockloff, to kick things off, don't often see in the money call purchases. When we do, it's usually scenarios like this where the underline's just rocking and rolling in your favor. What do you think about our friend here, loving himself some deltas here in MOMO?
I think that was a pretty savvy purchase, don't you think? At the time, with MOMO just hanging out, and then somebody buys a bunch of deep in the money calls, bid through the offer, they get filled, and then the stock goes up right afterward. You know, you never had that happen when you were a market maker, did you, Mark?
When I was a market maker, no, it was always the opposite, of course. They rammed 10,000 of them down my throat, and then the stock was summarily, overnight, shall we say. I missed my stock, and then, of course, it was cut or, analysts outperform, whatever happened overnight. Whichever way is the opposite of my position. And then, of course, it was painful. So, yes, I very rarely had this side of the fence happen to me. So I feel the love for this guy.
Yeah, see, he really I think his timing was very good. You just try to jam through 3,000 contracts in a fairly illiquid stock, and lo and behold, up it went. It just went upper and upper as far as I could tell. So I think the guy did okay. I think they did okay. So there you go.
I would concur with you, sir. Let's move on to our next name. Not many victims here today. It looks, at least for the first one, looking pretty good. Let's see if we can keep it up here with SunPower, ticker symbol SPWR, closing today pretty much $7, up nearly $1, or about 15% almost on the day. So not a bad day here for good old SunPower. If you're not familiar with this name, there is, surprise, surprise, a global energy company delivering solar solutions. It'd be ironic if their name was SunPower and they were all coal-based, shall we say. This is a name that does about 3,000 contracts a day, doing about 11,000 and change today, about 8.5 to 1 calls over puts. Once again, we got a fairly timely call buyer, kind of a theme of today's odd block. This time it was out in April, the regular monthly Aprils expiring on the 21st, the 6 half calls, lighting it up to the tune of, starting the day, 1,061. Paper gobbling up one block over there on the SIBO, paying just 22 cents. As the day went on, a total of 5,174 going up. Paper chasing these bad boys all the way up to 35 cents on the latter kind. Either way, they still look pretty good because these things went out to close the day. 63 cents at 68. So that initial 22 cent kind, this guy's looking at 3x on those bad boys. I'm sure he's wishing he got all 5,000 off there. Unfortunately, he did not, but still not a bad print. He'll take 3x on those. 2x are almost on the other two. Not bad for a few hours work. This is the name over the past year. It's kind of been in the doldrums until today. The last 6 months or so have kind of really just been kind of floating around this 6 handle. And it wasn't except for a brief spike into the 9 realm back in February. But it kind of came off that pretty quickly. Looks like we're set for another upside spike here, going from 6 to about 7. And our friend here taking the ride all the way up, looking pretty good. Mr. Rock Lobster, 2 very timely call trades here in a row. What say you to our friend piling into some at the money, now in the money calls here in SunPower?
I thought that was kind of timely. You know what I'm finding weird? I think this is like a little Tesla halo. Didn't Tesla buy that little Solar City?
Yeah, they have some solar plays out there. So that was my first thought as well. Whenever I see solar popping on a Tesla day, there is a little bit of that halo effect of Tesla out there. Not in the automotive industry, which crushes all those names, but in other related industries, it does seem to lift them. Yes.
Yeah, I mean it did. So. And this company has not. It's not like it was. It's been lighting up the tape anytime recently, and then all of a sudden everybody wants. I know Solar City. It's or First Solar, the next one on our list. It's not like the solar companies. You would think they would have been doing better somehow, or their prospects are getting better because the global warming thing is not getting any less global warming-y or whatever. But all these stocks are like totally at the bottom. They're at the bottom of their range. So I'm finding it odd that just today, everybody wants them. So a lot of buyers, 6.5 calls, paying small dollars. I mean, you're buying the April 22s for April 6.5 for 22 cents. And shock, the stock's trading $7 now. So I don't know where the buy signal came for all the solar stocks, but I guess that's a big, what is that? They paid $2 billion for Solar City, and now it's worth $55 billion. So when did they close that deal? What, 3 months ago? So I think how much they've almost doubled their market cap since then. All you can say is it was a good buy.
It was that same analyst who was off by 150 handles in Tesla. He also upgraded his price target in this name as well, in solar power to 7. Let's just say, and now he's feeling.
He's
the halo
there.
effect. He's playing in all of them. He was wrong in all of them. Now he's gonna adjust. He's feeling the love, and he's like you. He's just broken, and now he's feeling the love for all of them. Speaking of feeling the love, we're talking solar. Let's close out here on First Solar, one of the infamous solar names out there. Closing today, of course, ticker symbol FSLR. Closing today, $28 or just shy of it, up about $1.16 or a little over 4% on the day. Keeping with our call theme, we saw some more calls lighting it up today. This time, they were out of the money or upside. Now they're at the money. It was the April 28th. These are in the weeklies expiring on the 13th. Starting the day, going up a block of about 500. Paper buying those for 28 cents. As the day went on, about 10x, total of about 5,000 piling in. 5,000 kind of being the number du jour here in the op block today as well, Mr. Rock Lobster. Big chunks of these. 3,000 later, they went from 20 all the way up to, 28s and some of the latter prices even higher. These calls went out 42 at 52, so right in the mid to high 40 range for the mid, so not looking too bad, particularly on that early scoop there. Certainly the 20-cent kind, they got a lot of those, but looks like the chunk of them at 28. Didn't see any stock or anything else. Open interest pretty much non-existent on this strike, so does appear to be what it looks like on the surface, which is a straight-up call buy for some underlying love. I'm sure a lot of you have been following the First Solar saga over the past year. It has seen some interesting highs, most of those highs being set about a year ago when it was hovering in the 60 handle range. These days, right around half of that, a little bit shy of the 30 handle, so kind of on the nadir of its 1 year range here. Our friend here saying, though, Mr. Rock Lobster, the party is continuing, at least in the near term, and at least right around that 28 strike. Take us home, sir. What say you to these now at the money calls here in First Solar?
I think similar to the other, today was the solar. Today was solar uptick day. And somehow somebody knew it when they were buying all these calls this morning. How do they know? Somehow they got the memo of the solar stocks being up 7, 8, 9, 10% today. That's a good memo. Don't you think?
Got to get those shows, Mr. Rock Lobster. You got to get on that AIM window.
Oh my gosh, you got to get on the AIM window and jump on the train. So anyway, there you go. You've got today is Solar City, so to speak.
So to speak, indeed. So yes, good day to be in the solar at the money / in the money call buying business today. Interesting, shall we say, well-timed purchases across the board. We'll keep an eye on these names, see how they unfold. Meanwhile, though, it's Monday. Means it's time for the mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the mail block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the mail block. It's Monday. It's time for you guys to take the reins. Questions, comments, insights, hilarity, pearl of wisdom. Send them all to us. We love to hear from you guys. Could be on social media, could be on the website, the feedback form, email, however you like to reach out to us. We do love to hear from, including the live chat. If you guys can make it in there every Monday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Central. Love to hear from you guys, too. And a lot of things kicking it off. First off, I promised last week we would reveal the winners of our Broker Madness tourney. You know, not the firm. We know the firm that won was Lightspeed. But the actual winners of the prizes. Remember, we said there are fabulous prizes at stake for all of you who played along, not just in voting, but really in retweeting and liking, all the other stuff, doing all the stuff we can track. And also you can vote on other platforms, you can track those. So we put all of your names into a blender and we churned out the 3 prize winners. There were 3 prizes. There was a cool options-oriented swag box, the contents of which are still being decided, so lots of cool stuff. We have a lot of cool stuff around here in the studio and indeed in our storage area there. That some of them you can't get anymore from firms that, shall we say, no longer exist in the capital market. So perhaps some exclusive items. So if you're saying, I wish I could go to all these events and things and kind of participate in some of these activities, don't worry, we got you covered with a cool swag box. You too can participate. The winner of that swag easy for me to say. Winner of that swag box is Glenn Robertson. We will reach out to you. I believe you were on Twitter. We'll reach out to you and get your contact info. And then we also are giving away some exclusive Land's End Options Insider gear. Yes, the gear is so cool. It is worn by high-level, C-level execs throughout the options industry, as well as our team, of course. And it was even featured in the Land's End business catalog. It was so cool. You too can get it. The only way you can get it is a prize like this or really coming to work for us. That's about it. And the winner of that exclusive Land's End Options Insider gear is David Neff. So we'll reach out to you as well. I believe you were on Twitter as well, and get your contact info. And for that, of course, we'll need your shirt or jacket. So I got to figure out what kind of gear we're going to give you. We've got a lot of cool stuff. So don't worry, something cool coming your way. And of course, the Echo Dot winner, for those of you who want to play along in the connected speaker realm and really listen to the option block, say, Alexa, play the option block, and all kinds of fun stuff like that. You too can do that too. The winner there is Billy Moe. I think that's his full name. We got your handle. You were on Twitter as well, so 3 players on Twitter. So congratulations to all of you. And thanks to all of you who played. We love to have you guys voting and tweeting and retweeting and liking and emailing and doing everything else you guys were doing, Facebooking. It's a really fun tournament. We like doing that Options Broker Madness. Let us know if you like it. Judging by the responses, I think you do. And if you have ideas for other things we could do that are like that, you'd like to see. Someone did suggest we're closing in on the number of having enough exchanges to do an Exchange Madness tournament. I don't know if that would have the same resonance or not. It's kind of a sad commentary, if anything, on the state of affairs in the options space. But still, nonetheless, interesting stuff. Let's pay off some other questions here really quickly, too. We did last week. We asked you guys about Ford. Remember we were talking, Mr. Rock Lobster, on the show last week about the 975 puts in January, and Ford, someone was rolling out to those, and it was a little bit dubious about what exactly was going up with Ford. So we asked you guys. We said, hey, lots of talk going on out there in Ford, putting call buyers back and forth. Who do you think is right? So we asked you with Ford right around 11:30 when we posted the question, would you rather, it's going out to Jan now, this is long term because those puts were in January, buy the Jan 975 put like the person we highlighted on the odd block, would you rather buy the Jan 13 call, so kind of splitting the difference there, or sell the Jan 975 13 strangle for your premium sellers out there, or would you rather just trade Tesla? I'll give you the answers because we'll do the Tesla one in a minute. The answer, by a nose, the buying of the Jan 13 call, winning. So the Bulls and Ford out there taking the reins. Followed close number 2, 34% by I'd rather trade Tesla. 23% saying they'd rather sell that strangle. Only 7% agreeing with our odd block candidate that they'd rather buy that Jan put. So does that surprise either of you, Uncle Mike or Mr. Rock Lobster, that the Bulls are still out in force in Ford, at least for our listeners, and even more so than trading Tesla? They'd rather buy Ford calls.
No, not surprising to me a bit. It's from my feel in the retail world, a lot of middle-aged men love trading Ford, for better or for worse, from what I've seen for the 15 or so years I've been in the business. So can't say that surprises me, and most of the time I would say they're bullish on Ford.
There you go. Middle-aged men buying the Ford, says Uncle Mike. Let's move to another name. Maybe then you want to get your millennials, a little bit sexier generation, the car company of the new generation, like Pepsi, the old days. Tesla. We asked you guys, everyone's talking about Tesla, so our question of the week, of course, had to be Tesla. We asked you now, Tesla threatening the 315 level right around the time that we wrote this. So we said, how are you guys leaning in your options trades this month? Are you feeling more? Would you rather buy a 1 month 300 put? Would you rather buy the 1 month 330 call? Would you rather sell the 1 month 300 put for all of you premium harvesters out there in Tesla? We know there's quite a few of you. Or would you just stay the heck away from all of it? Votes pouring in. It's only been up for less than an hour, and people are already firing off on this quite a bit. I got a feeling this is going to be a pretty hot and heavy poll here. But that said, Mr. Rock Lobster, we shall start with you. First off, if you have any thoughts on the Ford thing, feel free to weigh in if you're listeners. I don't know if your pit chatters like Ford or not. And then what do you think is winning the Tesla poll here?
The Tesla poll, I'm going to say, oh dear, I know it's hard to believe, but I'm going to say the 330 calls are the most popular, although that is not what I would want to buy. I'd buy the 300 put.
So just to clarify, your personal recommendation is everyone goes out right now and buys a 1 month 330 call on Tesla. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what you're saying. So 1 vote for the 330 call. Uncle Mike, perhaps a more level head. What say you, sir? What is your personal vote and what is winning the poll?
I would say my personal vote, if I had to choose between those two, I think I'm going to go against my fellow umbrage partner. I feel bad about doing this, so please, no umbrage intended, Andrew. I know we need to team up our umbrage on Longo, but I think I'd buy the call, and I think the audience is buying the put.
Whoa.
Interesting. I was kind of wondering with this one. I know you have a lot of premium harvesters lurking around Tesla, so I kind of thought those guys may be winning. It's a close race right now. Like I said, it's only been up for about an hour. It'll evolve over the course of the week, but hot and heavy in the early action here with 34%, a little over a third, coming in and saying they're going to stay the hell out of it. Just staying away from Tesla. Too much juice for them. A little too crazy. I can certainly feel you there. Close behind it though, 29%. Is kind of what I thought was going to be winning, which is the selling the 1 month 300 put. So interesting way. I know a lot of you guys out there love I've had people stop me on the street and tell me about just the great juice in Tesla puts. So it's definitely captured the mindset of a broad audience out there. So 300 put, selling it, not buying it. So far, number two. 24% saying buy the 330 call. So about a quarter of the audience chiming in with you guys, and a lowly 13%. Saying buy the 300 put. So not a lot of fading of this crazy rally out here. And you guys, of course, firing off with all of your questions, all of your comments out here. A lot of people chiming on this one. This guy, J Phrase SF, interesting handle. He says, they can't make the live show. I'm sorry, but he says, I think the BS is what's missing. What Tesla is showing beyond volatile, it is hyper jumping or just insanity. Yeah, I guess it is certainly. I can get with you on the latter portion. Perhaps it is just insanity. Hyper jumping also perhaps a good term for this one. And this guy says GM has 99% of assets in ICE products. I'm assuming he means petroleum-based, aka ICE. Actually, they have the Brent. They have a lot of the Brent contract. I'm assuming he means Brent petroleum things. He says Tesla is 100% going towards EVs. Hint, the market is trying to tell you where the car industry is headed. Of course, this guy's handle is EV Investor, so I think he might have an axe to grind there. But what do you guys think about the results of our poll so far?
I think ICE means internal combustion engine.
Oh, it could be that as well. You're right. I see it in market terms where, I think ICE CME. I'm always breaking things down those lines. And ICE kind of got their start with OTC Brent, so that's kind of, to me, they're the big go-to platform still for a lot of crude stuff. But that said, you could be correct as well, sir. I'm not up on the EV lingo. I'm up on the capital markets lingo. I'm not like a Mainer like you.
I'm just guessing. I'm just thinking, I'm guessing internal combustion engine. What do I know? I just live in Maine, but
I say that to myself all the time after every show. What does Andrew know? He lives in Maine.
Anyway, I was trying to help you with that. I even sent it to you, a little birdie, and you had no acknowledgement. Anyway, I actually had nothing to add to that. I just thought, I do believe that's part of the rally, is that they're 100% the future. It's just, whether how much money they can make doing it or not, I guess remains to be seen. How many railroad companies were there in 1850? A couple 100,000, something like that, and there ended up only being 3 or 4 left. So maybe Tesla will be the one that figures out the electronic vehicle conundrum, making it work. Maybe they will.
It's possible, and if you feel any better, Mark, I thought it meant international Cubs enthusiasts.
There you go. So ICE means something different to every segment of the audience. I'll have to reach out to this person and see exactly what they meant. If they're deep in that EV rabbit hole, you may indeed be correct, Mr. Rock Lobster. But we shall see. Much closer to the earth, the salt of the earth out there in Maine, and the internal combustion stuff that goes on out there than we are here, I guess. Let's see here. We got time a little bit, but I need a quick one. We got so many questions. I'm not sure if this one's quick. Maybe we'll do a two-parter on this one for our friend here, Anderson Investing. He says he's new to options. I use TD Ameritrade, but currently don't like it for options. Interesting. A lot of people like the TOS platform. He's saying not so much. I was looking at Charles Schwab. Any recommendations for an options newbie? Well, I'll stop you there. If you're going to go to Schwab, I'm assuming you mean the OX platform. Don't go to the legacy Schwab platform. For an options user, for some reason, they still haven't migrated those two platforms. I don't know why. I have yet to get a real concrete answer from the Schwab folks why that is. They said years ago when they acquired OX, the goal was to kind of bring the two together. It seems like that's not so much the case these days. So if you're going to do Schwab, go to the OX platform, please. Because you'll get much more robust functionality there than you will on the Schwab. They're getting better. The Schwab platform certainly is better than it used to be. But still, definitely go to OX if you're going to go that way. If you're a newbie, stay away from IB. They have good rates and everything else like that, so they're attractive in that sense. But you need a little hand-holding when you're just getting started with options. And, IB does not hold your hand. So if you want to have someone you can call or contact or maybe get some education or ask about why a trade is that way or a margin balance is that way, IB, I would definitely recommend. OX, a good one. Some people get a little upset with their rates. We don't like to talk commissions here because it's about more than commissions. Execution wise, they're great. Platform wise is good. Rates wise, they're a little bit expensive. We of course, if you want it on the middle, a lot of people like the OX Options House stuff, particularly on the mobile side. I hear a lot of really great things. I played around with it myself a bit. The Options House mobile platform really gets a lot of use cases. So if you're into the Options House. Into mobile, Options House a good suggestion. We'll see how that unfolds with the E-Trade stuff. That's a question mark there, so that could concern you. Of course, there's also Trade King, also on our network, also does a lot of good stuff. If you're more concerned about commissions and things, they have a lot of good. They also have a lot of good educational content. Brian Overby obviously doing a lot of good content there. So if you want some good content, it's a good place to go as well as having low kind of commissions. So really quickly, Mr. Uncle Mike, what are your recommendations for brokers for a newbie?
I second what you said almost verbatim, and I have no umbrage to go along with it. I'm in pretty much total agreement with you on that.
Wow, crazy. What's the world coming to? Mr. Rock Lobster, anything to add? I know he asked to think about AMD puts. I don't think we have time to get into that. Maybe next time. But really quickly, Mr. Rock Lobster, what do you think about broker recommendation for a newbie?
A lot of people like TOS because I think it's a pretty intuitive platform for figuring stuff out. The OX does certain things. I think for beginners, it's better that aren't as active, but TOS I think is better if you're active. So that's what I would say on both of those things. If you're more advanced, I like the LiveVol platform, LiveVol X platform. To me, it still has the best option trading information in easy to grab fashion. So it just depends on, and ultimately it depends on what you're interested in. How you invest, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you on the LiveVol. That's problem is he's a newbie, and that might be a little bit overkill for him at the moment. So he doesn't say why he doesn't like the TOS stuff. Kind of be curious to see why. A lot of people like that platform. That could also be kind of overwhelming. And he says TD Ameritrade and Schwab, so maybe he's talking like legacy platforms there. I don't know. I'll have to get a little more insight. And we have more of your questions. Also questions about that put spread we talked about last time on the show. We got questions about that too. We'll get to all that on the next show. Unfortunately, we've got to keep on rolling into Around the Block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
Love having too many questions to answer on the show. It's always a good problem to have. Keep them coming. We read them all. We try to respond to them all. Sometimes not on the show. We'll get to you more directly if that's the case. A lot of you guys asking about that put spread. We'll get into that. We talked about on last week on the show and how exercise can hit you. We'll get to that. Don't worry. That's a more, I think, in-depth conversation for a full segment rather than 2 minutes at the end of the mail block. But yeah, good stuff. Keep them coming. We read them all. We try to answer as many as we can on the air if they're good. If not, we'll get back to you directly with some more appropriate, perhaps off-air comments. All right, that said, a lot of stuff popping off, soon to be popping off, shall we say. We talked earlier in the show that, vol kind of creeping up that's certainly something to keep an eye on there, even though we were fading it on vol views. VIX not playing along, popping to start the week. We'll see if that continues into the end of the week. Earnings still kind of on the near future, but not yet coming up there, so we got a little bit of a respite there. That said, we'll start with you, Uncle Mike. What are you watching for the rest of this week, sir? Of course, we have the holiday weekend as well. Forgot to mention that, so that will also play in. But that said, what's catching your eye, sir?
Well, the one thing that's really catching my eye the most, I would say right now, is oil. Oil is just a couple bucks away from the 55 highs that it had a couple months ago, and it's just slowly kind of creeping up there. You combine that with what's going on in the VIX. I mean, I'm definitely watching the VIX, but I'm going to let Andrew pontificate on that a little bit more because he watches a lot more moving parts in the VIX than I do. But I would say for me, VIX, oil, I want to see if the metals will jump on board with oil as well, which, well, they kind of have recently, but just wanted to see kind of more. I'm looking more in the commodity space right now as something to watch, but also watching the usuals in the S&P as always. But the other things, look at the commodities. There's some stuff going on there.
Yeah, commodities. Tune into our TWIFO show every Friday, or get it on the old iOS or wherever you get your podcast programs. If you want to check it out, just grab our network feed. It's in there. We kind of break down some of that commodity action. It's been interesting to watch of late. Mr. Rocklops, the same question for you. What are you watching through this truncated trading week, sir?
Well, we do have a good Friday on Friday, as every Friday is good, but this one is more gooder than most, I guess. I'm watching just really strange future action. There's a lot of flatness in the futures. There's even a little touch of backwardation for such low vol is strange. I have to admit, we said Trump is not the single-digit VIX president, but he is making the VIX futures do things that I can't recall seeing before, or at least not seeing in the last 5 years of watching them. So it's kind of like the market is saying, well, we're just not going to have any volatility, but we're going to have some, but we don't know when it is, but it's going to happen soon, and we don't know why. Usually, the vol futures kind of price big events and things like this, but right now it's pricing a small VIX, so it's weird. It's weird. It's a little strange, and we'll see. I just think there is definitely some confusion out there, and it could very well be tied to this French election that, we are in the cycle now where VIX is going to pick up the late April, early May volatility. I think there's a lot of vol in the V-stock stuff, and there's really nowhere else to hedge it. And it could be just because, the French election goes normal, whatever that means anymore. You might actually, volatility goes both ways. You can get maybe a 1 or 2% launch in Europe after this election cycle. So that would create probably a bit of a lift for us as well, even though we seem to have been disconnected from it during Brexit. We weren't at the beginning for sure, because we had kind of all those near limit down days, at least for one day. So I think there's just some weird stuff in there is some strange activity in the vol futures, and it's still a 4% volatility market. That's where we are, but VIX is trading 14, but in the near term volatility is also very low. Going April 17 vol for next week. I know it's a Monday X close and there's a 3-day weekend, but still, there's almost a 7-point vol discrepancy now, on some stuff. So there's a lot of strange currents happening. A lot of strange currents, cross currents even, you could say.
A lot of cross currents, a lot of strange things happening. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. The only strange thing going on now is the end of this fine program. What a journey it has been through the world of options. We talked VIX, we talked Tesla, we talked some of your thoughts about both. We talked about some interesting call activity in the money, well-timed perhaps, in a couple of solar-related names, as well as some others out there. We revealed, finally, the winners of our options broker madness, the people who played along, not just the firms. We do it for you guys, too, and the winners out there. Again, congrats to Billy Moe, David Neff, and Glenn Robertson. We'll reach out to you on your platforms of choice. Get your contact info. Your prizes will be heading out forthwith. We're looking forward to that. We do love to hear from you guys. Keep playing along with all of our all of our content and all of our contests. And we do love to hear you guys and see you out there boating and playing and having fun. All right, and before we go, let's check back in. Let's start with you, Uncle Mike. You kind of posited an interesting idea on the show last week. Let's keep that ball rolling. What you got cooking in the land of all things RCM Wealth Advisors?
The man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Giovinazzi has teamed up with RCM. If you give me a call and inquire about opening up an account with RCM and you end up opening up an account with RCM, you will get 1 free hour with Andrew. You can ask him about the VIX. You can ask him about trading in general. You can ask him about anything you want from a man who has traded very successfully, I might add, for 20 plus years. On top of that, if you want to ask him about anything else, you can even ask him about crab fishing or chainsaw maintenance. How can anyone not want that deal? If you have any interest in that deal, feel free to give me a call at 312-212-3539. Or I'm sorry, 312-212-3531, or send me an email at mtosaw@rcmfs.com.
There you go. Well done. Mr. Rock Lobster, I have a feeling your promotion may be somehow tied to that, or it could be you want to talk about fishing. What's up?
Well, I can just say ditto what Mike said for anybody interested. Please check it out. But also, we will be having a new webinar soon. We will let you know when, but you can go check out our Pro Trader Summit if you want to meet Mark or I live in Chicago for 3 days of learning and fun in the Windy City.
3 days of learning and fun in that Windy City. I know a thing or two about the old Windy City. Maybe I'll swing by and we'll have some good fun. Meanwhile, though, that's a good offer. Take Uncle Mike up on it via the Rock Lobster. If you're not sick of listening to him after an hour on this show, you can spend a whole hour, have him all to yourself. So you can ask him about Maine and lobster fishing, all sorts of other fun stuff. But you got to hit up Uncle Mike to do that. So reach out to him and let him know you're interested, and he'll set you up. On behalf of Uncle Mike and the Rock Lobster, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there in the listening audience for downloading and streaming and subscribing to the show, and of course, sending in such great questions. Of course, for those of you who can join us live, we love you guys out there as well. And we'll see you on Thursday for more of The Option Block.
The preceding program was a production of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.